Hello everyone and happy Monday. It's your friend Ryan Rolfe with the DSM Sold team at Keller Williams Legacy Group here in Des Moines in Central Iowa. And it's Monday, so you know what that means. It's time for another episode of Monday Market Update. We're halfway through December, so just a couple weeks left and we will be in 2026. That said, some good news for 2025 compared to 2024 is we actually beat our closed sales number already. So we're about 500 above where we were last year at the same time. We've reached the 13,000 closed sales milestone. Now, if we look back prior years, not counting COVID, before COVID, and then kind of after the COVID years, we've been in that 13,000 to 14,000, mid 14,000 sales year over year. So if we kind of average that out, took out the COVID years, we'd probably be in the 14,500 sales, give or take. So that's kind of been our steady number, is what you'll see if you look at prior years. So my hope is that we'll see that again this next year, which would mean more closed sales, which means more activity for sellers and more buyers out in the market. Part of that will have to do with interest rates. So if you look at this year, kind of the rate trend has been a little bit like this, but it's been consistently going down. So while we can't control interest rates, we have no control over them. The market kind of determines what that's going to be along with the Federal Reserve rate. Even though mortgage interest rates aren't directly tied to that Federal Reserve rate, that does have an effect on them. So if things continue, we'll likely see the new year starting off with rates lower compared to previous years, where we tended to see that little increase in rates after the end of the year dip. If you remember me talking about last year and the year before, we kind of had that end of the year dip, and then they went back up, and then they started to come back down again. Well, this year it looks like, if anything, they may go up a little bit and then kind of trend back down. So we might see 6% or even below that by the time we get to spring, which would be great news for both buyers and sellers. That being said, weather does have a factor on what happens in the market, not necessarily the interest rates, but what happens in the market. So we've had a lot of snow this December. Typically, we will see some of that in January, February. If you look at last year, we had kind of a big snowstorm at the beginning of January, so that certainly had slowed things down getting the year started. So hopefully this less mild December means a more mild January for the real estate market, which would mean that we would see more people out and looking in January if the weather is nicer. And rates, as I had mentioned, if those continue to stay where they're at or trend downward in the low sixes. And of course, depending on where you're getting your mortgage rate or your loan rather, and what criteria you're meeting, we are seeing still some mortgages, interest rates in the fives in the metro area. So that's great news for folks that are out looking to buy. We may see that, trend that way as well into 2026. So hopefully with interest rates and hopefully a nice January, or at least by the time we get spring, weather will be nice. And with rates trending the way that they have, likely not going to see a huge increase in interest rates. We may see some stabilization and kind of staying where they're at, but more than likely we'll see rates come down a little bit, which I think will lead to more activity in the new year. And with all of that, as we enter the last couple of weeks of 2025, if your home is sitting on the market, if you're looking to buy, still the same things go as previous weeks that I said. As a listing, we need to be standing out ahead of the market and being prepared that our home may sit on the market a little bit as well. The more ahead of the market we're priced, so looking at your competition, how we're pricing against them, the more likely we're going to move your home quicker. And as a buyer, you do have the opportunity to be a lot more picky. We certainly have seen that this year, especially this later part of this year. Buyers are being a lot more picky, and their confidence has come back in what they can ask for. So take that into mind as we go through the last couple of weeks of the year and into the new year. That's not going to just change once we hit 2026. So bear in mind how you're pricing your home, and as a buyer, knowing that you do have more negotiating power with more inventory on the market. So hopefully that's all helpful for you. And if you've got questions on what that might mean, feel free to reach out. This weekend, though, we did see 97 new homes come on the market. 66 homes went into pending or under contract status, and 100 homes sold and closed. Typically, we see those numbers a little bit higher, and yet we are towards the end of the year, so that's pretty normal. going into the last couple of weeks of 2025. As always, like I mentioned, if you've got questions on what this might mean for you, feel free to reach out. Always happy to be a resource and answer your neighborhood specific or your specific questions around what this means for you if you're thinking about buying, selling, maybe even investing in real estate as we end 2025 or go into 2026, which pretty much everything at this point will be closing in 2026 if you're starting now. And yet there are some of those one-off cash offers and whatnot. So you still could have a closing in 2025. Thanks everybody for watching. Have an amazing week and we'll see you next time. Bye.